So are Mualani's Constellations worth it, or should you go for her signature weapon? In this video, we're going to be explaining her Constellations, seeing which one of them are going to be the best value, and if you're on a budget, how should you choose, whether her Constellations or her signature weapon or something else. But if you want to buy Genesis crystals to get Mualani's Constellations, a cheaper and safe way to do it is going to be throughout Lootbar GG. Lootbar is going to be a very safe and secure top-up website where you can buy different games currencies, including Genshin Impact. If you want to buy from there, you'd want to click the link in the description. You go to the website, choose the game, for example Genshin Impact, and then choose an offer. For example, this offer here is going to cost me around $50 in the official game store. On Lootbar, it's going to cost me $43.23. That's around $7 or 15% saved. And with coupons, you can have even more discounts. With Lootbar, you can save up to 20% when buying your Genesis crystals. But yeah, you just want to choose your offer, enter your user ID and region, make sure they're right. Click on top up now, enter your payment information, and then just click on proceed. After you do that, you just want to wait a couple minutes and then open up your game, and the Genesis crystals are going to be there. Those are some reviews from their website. They're very safe and secure. Use the link in the description to get your Genesis crystals from Lootbar now. Alright, so first of all, starting off with your signature weapon, Surf's Up. I'm going to do a separate video reviewing this weapon later, so subscribe for that. But for right now, I'm just going to quickly explain what this weapon gives you on Mualani herself. So in short, what this weapon is going to give you is going to be 88% crit damage, which is a lot, and then 20% HP, and then 48% damage bonus in total, which is super huge. All of these are going to be stats that Mualani wants, and this weapon being able to give you 3 of them, and quite considerable amounts of them, is going to be pretty good. Now, how much damage increase is that going to result in? Simply, obviously that's going to depend on what weapon you had before. The lowest weapon you can have is going to be the craftable weapon. Obviously, it's free to play, everyone's going to be able to have it. So this weapon, the signature weapon, is going to be around a 28% damage increase from the R5 craftable weapon, which is, by the way, pretty huge. If you have the Sacrificial Jade R1, which is the battle pass weapon, this weapon is going to be around a 25% damage increase. But if you have the Sacrificial Jade R5, it's only going to be around a 7% damage increase. These calculations are not too accurate. It was just like very quick, but it's definitely going to be around that. So yeah. But yeah, Sacrificial Jade R5 is going to be able to give you a huge amount of HP, and that's going to result in quite some damage increase. So yeah, if you have an R5, it's the battle pass weapon. You've been buying the battle pass, getting the Sacrificial Jade, then it's obviously going to be a very good weapon. Another good weapon, and pretty much last one for Mualani, is going to be Tome of the Eternal Flow. At Refinement 1, the signature weapon is going to be around 25% better than it. So it's not looking very good. So yeah, as you guys can see here, her signature weapon is going to be around like 25 to 28% damage increase from every single weapon, even like the top weapons, except for if you have the Sacrificial Jade R5. And 25% is not going to be like your average weapon. Usually the average DPS weapon is going to be around like 10-15% damage increase, especially from the top weapons. But this is a significantly huge increase for a character. So her signature weapon is going to be a top tier weapon for Mualani, and a super good weapon, just simply. It's definitely going to be a very considerable increase for her damage. Alright, so now moving on to her Constellations, I'm going to explain them very quick, see what they give you, and then how much damage they're going to increase, and then finally we're going to compare them with her weapon. So yeah, first of all, starting off with her C1. Her C1 is pretty much that the damage you deal from your elemental skill. The first shark bite when you enter your elemental skill, that's going to be increased by 66% of your max HP, which is a huge amount, by the way. That's going to increase your first hit's damage by a lot, and knowing that her hits are pretty much like nukes, so any increase on one hit is going to be like super impactful. And that's not going to be any increase. It's going to be a huge increase, probably around like more than 50 or 60% damage increase for the first hit. It's also going to gain all the buffs and stuff like that. And also on top of that, it's going to give you some exploration bonuses, which is rare to see on Constellations. But yeah, you're going to consume less Night Soul Blessing like stats. So you're going to be able to surf for longer and stuff like that when you're outside of combat. But yeah, for combat, the main thing your C1 gives you is that it's going to buff your first hit of damage inside of your elemental skill. That's going to result in a huge damage increase, probably around at 20%, which is super good for a Constellation, especially C1. It's only one hit, but this one hit is going to be a huge part of your damage. Now her C2 is pretty much just going to allow you to gain your buff in stacks faster. It's going to give you 2 stacks just when you use your elemental skill right away, and then it's going to allow you to gain 1 stack for every puffer. So you don't need to like roam into enemies, so you can collect stacks and then attack. You're going to be able to have the full stacks pretty much always, just as the beginning of your elemental skill without wasting any time. Especially especially in single target enemies. That's going to be very useful. You just got to run through the enemy once, and then you have your maximum 3 stacks. It's also going to give you 1 stack every time you collect the puffer. And when you collect 2 puffers, it's going to give you some night soul points, which is also going to increase your field time. And that's also pretty good. Now, C2 in my eyes is going to be more of a comfort constellation because it's just going to allow you to gain the stacks right away. And then it's going to allow you to have more field time. So you're going to be more comfortable playing Mualani. Also, you can play her with more like supports. It's going to be a larger window. So it's always good to have more field time. If you get interrupted, for example, you're not going to lose your DPS and so on. If you play it perfectly, you might be able to fit in an extra hit, but that's not always the case. If you're able to fit in an extra hit, that's going to be around like a 13% damage increase, something like that. It also depends if you're able to vaporize this hit or not. So how much damage C2 is going to give you is just going to depend a lot, but sometimes it can be a 0% damage increase, like literally. It's just more of a comfort thing. You play more like slower. You don't need to rush for stacks. Supports are going to work better and stuff like that. So C2 is going to be from like 0 to 13% damage increase, maybe more if you're able to vaporize the hit, but it's not always guaranteed. It's kind of inconsistent. So yeah, just keep that in mind. C3 is just going to allow you to increase the level of your elemental skill. The thing is, it's going to result in more damage than pretty much any constellation of this type is going to result in, because that's going to be a huge part of your damage. So increasing the level of your skill is going to result in a lot of damage. Or not a lot, but like compared to this type of constellation, it's going to be a lot. It's going to be around like 10% damage increase, which is pretty decent for like a level constellation. C4 is that when you gain a buffer from your passive, you're going to gain 8 energy. So pretty much like 16 energy per rotation extra. She doesn't even really struggle with energy like that, so it's not like necessary. And then also it's going to increase the damage you deal by your elemental burst by 75%, which is a lot, but your elemental burst is not like a huge part of your damage anyways, so it's kind of meh. In general, C4 is going to result in around 5% damage increase, something around that, so it's not going to be a lot. C5 is going to increase the level of your elemental burst. As I said, the damage from your elemental burst is not going to be a lot, so it's going to result in around like a 2% damage increase, which is not a lot. Now finally, C6, it's simply just that extra 2 C1s. The damage bonus you gain from your C1 for your first hit, you're going to be able to apply that to every single hit you're able to do. So if you're able to do 3 hits, all of them are going to be buffed. If you're able to do like 4 hits, all of them are going to be buffed. And that's huge. It's pretty much just like 2 extra C1s, like literally. And the damage increase is also going to translate into that. The damage increase you gain from C6 is going to be around 38%, which is huge. For a C6 is pretty good, even for a C6. It's definitely one of the good C6s. It's not like necessary or anything, but getting a C6, you'll definitely see her damage increase by a lot. It's going to be like huge nukes every time. The damage increase can vary too if you're not able to fit in the full hits or something like that, or if you're able to fit in the full hits, whether you vaporize them or not. It's going to vary, but in general, it's always going to result in much more damage than if it wasn't there. So yeah, it's definitely a very good C6. Alright, so now moving on to the final conclusion. How should you wish? Should you get the constellations or the weapons? So first of all, the first priority in my opinion is going to be the weapon. As we've seen before, her weapon is generally going to result in a very good amount of damage increase unless you have the sacrificial R5. If you have it, then in that case, then just don't go for it. But if you haven't been buying the battle pass, or if you don't have the sacrificial R5, if you have it like R1, R2, then in that case, I would recommend going for signature weapon. It's going to be much better. It's also a weapon which is generally good value for your account. You can use the weapon on, you know, upcoming new characters, and that's usually going to be good. It's also not a bad weapon. It's going to be pretty versatile. It has crit. You can always use it as just like a crit stat stick. So yeah. So in my opinion, if you're on a budget, you'd want to invest on your Mualani a little bit, and you don't have the R5 sacrificial, then go for her signature weapon. After her signature weapon at R1, then you probably just want to get C1. I'd say R1, C1 is generally a very good stopping point. If you want to get C2, it's going to be decent value too. It's going to be a very good stopping point too, but it's much less necessary than C1 in my opinion. C1 is going to have much more consistent value than C2, even like exploration. C3 to like C5, I would recommend just skipping if you're not planning to go for C6. And if you want a C6er, it's definitely one of the good characters that you can C6. It's going to result in a lot more damage, like 40% damage increase. So yeah, it's one of the good C6s. But yeah, for my recommendation, I'd say just stop at C1 R1. That's probably the very good sweet spot if you want to invest in your Mualani a little bit. And if you have like the R5 sacrificial, maybe don't even get R1, just go for C2 straight up. But yeah, that was the video guys. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.